So if you're building a suspension bridge or, I don't know, designing a rocket engine, there's this fundamental expectation of absolute mathematical precision.
Right. You definitely want the smartest physicists in the room for that.
Exactly. You want someone with an IQ of 160 calculating the exact load-bearing stress of every single rivet.
Yeah, because in those fields, raw processing power is the ultimate asset. It's really a game of perfect calculation.
A higher intellect directly correlates to a better outcome.
100%.
But then, you step into the world of investing and building long-term wealth, and suddenly that exact same genius-level intellect might actually cause your rocket to just explode on the launch pad.
It's totally counterintuitive.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's what we are taking a deep dive into today. Welcome to our latest deep dive, where we're looking at this incredible source material. It's a book called Buffett and Munger Unscripted by Alex W. Morris.
Yeah, it's an amazing compilation.
Right. It synthesizes over 1,700 questions from 31 years of Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meetings. And the whole mission today is to distill 3 decades of billionaire investment philosophy into practical mental models that you, listening right now, can actually apply to your own decision-making.
We're basically cutting through all the high finance jargon.
Exactly. We want to uncover the uncommon sense behind true wealth generation. We're going to get into why having a 160 IQ might ruin your investments, and why you should probably translate the accounting term EBITDA into bullshit earnings.
That's my favorite part.
It's so good. And we'll also cover how the secret to massive success is treating business decisions like stepping over 1-foot bars. But, to understand any of that, we really have to start by clearing away a massive misconception, right?
Yeah, we do. Because Wall Street loves to divide the world into 2 camps. They're obsessed with value investing on one side and growth investing on the other.
You hear it constantly on financial news, like, are we in a value market or a growth market today?
Right, they treat them like they're these entirely opposing strategies. But the crazy thing is, Buffett and Munger flat out reject that entire framework.
Yeah.
They argue that there's absolutely no such thing as a non-value investment.
Okay, wait, let's unpack the mechanics of that. Because when I think of value investing, I picture like a guy in a dusty suit buying cheap, dying companies.
The classic cigar butts.
Yes. Finding a discarded cigar on the street that has, 1 free puff left in it. Buying something ugly just because it's priced below its book value. How on earth does paying a massive premium for a rapidly expanding tech giant like Amazon fit into the value category?
Well, that is the exact mental trap people fall into. They confuse the label with the underlying math.
Yeah.
Because the mathematical reality of investing, it hasn't actually changed since Aesop wrote his fables in 600 BC.
A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush.
Exactly. Investing is simply the process of calculating exactly how many birds are in the bush, how long it will take you to get to that bush, how certain you are that the birds will actually be there when you arrive, and what the interest rates will be in the meantime.
Okay, let's pause on that last variable for a second, the interest rates, because that really feels like the silent killer in the equation. Why does the prevailing rate dictate the value of those future birds?
It all comes down to the opportunity cost of your capital.
Huh.
If interest rates are essentially 0, waiting 10 years for those birds in the bush isn't a huge deal.
Because you couldn't earn much on your money sitting in the bank anyway.
Right. But if interest rates are at, say, 5% or 7%, the money you hold in your hand today could be growing risk-free. So to justify putting your money into a business, that future bush needs to hold a radically higher number of birds just to compensate you for the wait.
That makes total sense. That's basically the essence of a discounted cash flow analysis, isn't it?
That's exactly what it is.
So whether you are buying a boring, regional bank at a 30% discount to its book value, or you're paying top dollar for a tech behemoth like Amazon, you're actually running the exact same formula.
Identical. It's the exact same math. When Berkshire's investment managers bought Amazon stock, they were operating strictly as value investors.
Wow.
Yeah, they just found a business where they felt highly confident they understood how the cash flow would develop between now and Judgment Day. If you pay a high multiple for a company because you accurately calculate that the future cash flows will be massive, you are doing value investing.
You're just putting money out now to get more money later.
Right. The expectable future cash flow is all that matters. The label is totally irrelevant.
Okay, but that brings up an obvious problem. If the math of investing is literally as simple as a fable from 600 BC about birds in a bush, why isn't everyone walking around as a billionaire? The formula is universally known.
Because the math isn't the hard part. The psychology is where everyone fails. And that brings us right back to the rocket scientist with the 160 IQ we talked about earlier. Munger states point blank that if you have an IQ of 160, you should honestly sell 30 points to someone else because it is going to hurt you.
That is such a wild concept. It's better to be someone with a 130 IQ who operates well within their own limits than a 160 IQ who just lacks emotional control.
Precisely. The ultimate enemy here is what Munger calls a fretful disposition.
A fretful disposition. I love that phrasing. It perfectly captures that modern anxiety of like refreshing your portfolio app every 5 minutes.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a brilliant analogy about farming in the text that really diagnoses why we drive ourselves crazy with this. Think about it. If you go out and buy a farm today, you don't call up your real estate agent every single morning to demand a daily price quote on your land.
No, of course not.
You don't use that to figure out if you're successful.
You would look at the fundamental output of the asset you actually purchased. You would check the crop yield.
Right, you check to see how much corn the farm produced. So why do we let minute-by-minute stock tickers dictate our emotional state?
Because liquidity makes us stupid.
Yes. Because we can sell a stock instantly, we obsess over the daily price. We essentially act like the stock market is there to instruct us.
Right, we assume those flashing red and green numbers somehow know more about the underlying business than we do.
But the market isn't there to instruct you. It's there to serve you.
Exactly. And if you can't detach yourself from the crowd, if you get scared just because everyone else is panicking over a price drop, you just do not have the temperament to build wealth. It requires immense emotional discipline.
Which is hard to maintain.
Very hard. Munger actually illustrates this by pointing to Pete Kiewit, who ran a massive construction empire in Omaha. Kiewit wasn't trying to be the most brilliant guy in the room. His superpower was simply systematically avoiding dumb mistakes.
Which means he wasn't constantly swinging for the fences, trying to prove his genius to everyone.
Right, he was patient. If you watched him for 10 years, you would literally never see him do something obviously foolish. And this really encapsulates the whole philosophy. Investing isn't about training yourself to jump over a 7-foot bar. It is about looking around patiently, totally ignoring the crowd, until you find a 1-foot bar that you can simply step over.
Okay, let's focus on that 1-foot bar for a second. Say you've done the psychological work, right? You've checked your ego, you uninstalled your stock ticker app, and you're patiently waiting. What does a structurally beautiful 1-foot bar business actually look like once you find it?
Well, not all profitable businesses are created equal. The ultimate holy grail, the absolute unicorn of the business world, is what they call a compounding machine.
A compounding machine?
Yeah. Imagine you find a business and you put $100 million into it and it generates a fantastic 20% return on that capital.
That's great, right?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. But the real magic happens if you can take a new $1 billion, pump it into that exact same business, and it continues to generate that identical 20% return on the new massive amount of capital. It can endlessly absorb money and spit out high returns.
Okay, let me push back on that framework a bit, because it kind of creates a paradox with Berkshire's own history. When people think of their greatest hits, they almost always think of See's Candies.
Oh, sure.
It's legendary. But See's Candies has a natural ceiling, doesn't it? I mean, people only eat so much boxed chocolate. You can't just plow $1 billion into building new candy factories across the globe because the demand just isn't infinite.
Right.
So how does their most famous investment fit the definition of a compounding machine?
Well, it doesn't. Not internally, anyway, and that is a really vital distinction to make. See's Candies is an incredible business, but as you pointed out, it does not require or even accept much capital. It is a cash cow, not a compounding machine.
Oh, okay.
Compare that to the opposite end of the spectrum, which is what Munger calls the rusting tractor business.
The rusting tractor.
Yeah, he brings up an old friend, John Anderson, who was in the used construction equipment business. Anderson used to joke that every year his business would make a 12% profit. And there it is, just sitting in the yard.
So the company looks profitable on paper, like it's reporting a 12% return, but every single cent of that profit has to be instantly reinvested just to maintain the heavy machinery and keep the lights on.
Exactly. The profit is literally trapped in rusting metal. You never actually get to take the cash home.
Wow.
The underlying mechanism there is capital intensity. The tractors are constantly degrading, demanding cash just to maintain the status quo. So you have the rusting tractor, which eats cash just to survive.
Right.
You have the cash cow, like See's Candies, which generates massive surplus cash but can't absorb it. And then you finally have the compounding machine, which generates cash and can infinitely reinvest it at high rates.
Which really reveals Berkshire Hathaway's true structural superpower, doesn't it?
Oh, totally.
They act as the capital allocator. They pull the trapped surplus cash out of the cash cow like sees candies. And they actively prevent it from being wasted on rusting tractors.
Exactly.
Instead, they deploy it into entirely different industries where the returns are better, essentially turning Berkshire itself into the compounding machine.
Yeah, that's exactly the magic trick. But, the universe of publicly traded companies is astronomically huge. Filtering through thousands of businesses to find those compounders without getting completely overwhelmed, it requires a really aggressive strategy.
Which is where the too-hard pile comes in.
Yes. You don't need to understand 90% of the businesses out there, or even 50%. You just need to know exactly where the perimeter of your own knowledge lies. They call this your circle of competence.
The way they describe filtering information, it reminds me of that famous 1972 World Chess Championship between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Yeah. Experts studying the game realized that a grandmaster like Fischer wasn't actually calculating thousands of moves faster than a computer. What he was doing was instantly eliminating 99.99% of the bad moves without even giving them a second thought.
Right. His brain just filtered out the garbage immediately.
Exactly.
And when people pitch ideas to Buffett and Munger, they often hang up the phone in 30 seconds because the business doesn't make it through their first mental filter. It just goes straight into the too-hard pile.
It's very similar to the baseball legend Ted Williams and his science of hitting. Williams divided the strike zone into 77 distinct cells and mapped out his exact batting average for every single one. He absolutely refused to swing at a pitch in his cold zones, even if it was technically a strike. He just waited for the pitch in his sweet spot.
Yeah.
But, and here's my question, if you operate like that and instantly throw everything outside your immediate knowledge into the too-hard pile, don't you risk missing out on massive world-changing shifts, like huge booms?
Yeah, you absolutely do. Mistakes of omission happen constantly. Munger freely admits he gives himself a pass for missing Amazon in the early days. I mean, Jeff Bezos was doing something entirely unprecedented with internet retail back in 1997.
Right.
Predicting that massive consumer shift required speculation that was genuinely outside their circle of competence. Passing on Amazon was basically just letting a pitch go by that was outside their strike zone.
You can't beat yourself up for missing a pitch you fundamentally couldn't hit.
Exactly. But Munger admits they felt like an absolute horse's ass for missing Google.
Because Google wasn't outside their circle of competence.
Far from it. They were heavily utilizing Google's services. Through their ownership of the Geico insurance company, they were paying Google $10 for every single click on an ad.
Wow.
They could see their own internal data showing those ads were highly profitable for Geico. But the crucial insight was that while Geico was paying $10, the marginal cost to Google to provide that click was exactly $0.
They saw the underlying economics working perfectly from the inside. They saw a digital toll bridge with zero marginal costs, just printing money, and they still missed it.
As Munger puts it, they just sat there sucking their thumbs. They saw a 1-foot bar right in front of them, squarely inside their circle of competence, and they failed to step over it.
So even the masters make glaring mistakes when they fail to act on what they clearly know.
Yeah, it happens to everyone.
So, okay, let's say you do the work, you filter out the noise, and a business lands squarely in your circle of competence. You understand the economics. The next hurdle is verifying that the people running the company aren't just, selling you a fairy tale.
Right.
If you understand the math, how do you know the numbers they're giving you are actually real?
Well, this requires a highly tuned BS filter when you're reading annual reports, because management teams are incredibly skilled at obscuring hard truths.
Which brings us to my absolute favorite part of the source text. I have to bring this up. It's Munger's translation of the accounting term, EBITDA.
Yes. Earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization.
He says whenever you see EBITDA in a presentation, you should mentally substitute it with the phrase bullshit earnings.
It's a hilarious phrase.
Yeah.
But it reveals a really deep mechanical truth about how companies hide their flaws. Let's connect this back to John Anderson's rusting tractors from earlier.
Okay.
The D in EBITDA stands for depreciation. Now, depreciation isn't just some abstract non-cash accounting entry. It is the literal mathematical representation of that tractor rusting in the yard.
Which will eventually demand real cash to replace.
Exactly. When a CEO highlights earnings before depreciation, they are literally asking you to ignore the rust. They are asking you to pretend the capital expenditures required just to keep the business alive don't exist.
That is so wild. So when a company heavily relies on metrics like EBITDA, they are essentially attempting to obscure their capital intensity.
Absolutely.
So what should you look for instead of all this PR gobbledygook?
Candidness. You want to read an annual report and feel like the CEO is talking to you exactly how a subsidiary manager would talk to a parent company. You want them to deliver the bad news immediately and clearly.
You definitely don't want a glossy magazine full of stock photos and PR spin that was generated by some high-priced consulting firm just to feed the animals on Wall Street.
Right. If the management won't admit when they have a serious problem they haven't solved yet, you just can't trust them with your money.
It really all comes back to the core theme here. Building wealth, whether you're picking stocks, navigating a career path, or, running a local hometown business, is almost never about having the highest IQ in the room. It is about practicing uncommon sense.
It requires maintaining emotional discipline when everyone around you is panicking, having the humility to stay strictly inside your circle of competence, and really searching for businesses that generate real, extractable cash, rather than getting seduced by complex accounting and buzzwords.
That leaves us with a final, really provocative thought from a fascinating exchange Buffett and Munger had during a 2023 debate.
Oh, this was a great debate.
Right. Munger, kind of playing the pessimist, warned that modern value investors must just get used to making less. His argument was that there is simply too much smart money today and way too many highly educated people competing for a shrinking pool of opportunities.
But Buffett countered that argument completely. He stated that there are actually more opportunities than ever. The massive influx of easy money over the last decade has led to a dramatic increase in people doing big, dumb things.
A big, dumb thing.
Yeah. When capital is easy to get, people don't think as hard, and they make larger, more obvious mistakes.
And those mistakes create the opening. So here's the question for you to mull over today as we wrap up. In your own industry or your own career, are you exhausting yourself trying to outsmart a hyper-competitive crowd in the short term? Or are you staying patient, keeping your emotions in check, and quietly waiting to take advantage of the big, dumb things happening around you?
Right. Are you taking the time to build a true compounding machine for the next 20 years?
It really all comes down to where you focus your energy. Are you trying to train yourself to jump a 7-foot bar, or are you looking for the 1-foot bar?
You don't need to be a rocket scientist calculating the stress of every rivet to reach the stars.
Sometimes you just need the discipline to keep your feet on the ground and wait for the right moment to step forward.